Hello and welcome to week 2 of business communication. I want to thank everyone for your participation so far. It's been really fun and exciting reading your introductions and following along with the discussion posts and just getting to know each of you a bit more and seeing some of your thoughts and opinions on the topics we've covered so far. I wanted to let you know I plan to record a video just like this every week with a couple reminders, suggestions, some encouragement, and then also an overview of the assignments that week. So I strongly encourage you to look for these and watch them all the way through. I think that it'll make the class flow a little bit better and feel like you're getting some personal guidance instead of just, reading some discussion, announcement details and trying to manage deadlines, etc. With your video introductions, I just wanted to let everyone know how grateful I am that each of you who was uncomfortable still completed the assignment and embraced that discomfort. The reason I specifically assigned a video introduction is I think that it's a growing professional communication tool. And I think that in a class on business and professional communication, it's important for us to practice the technology and the tools that are becoming more prevalent. There's a lot of tools that help us write an email or a paper, but if you have to do a video submission for a grant or a loan or an interview, right, there's not a substitute for that yet. I personally, just to get vulnerable, can let you know I don't love recording myself or seeing myself on video. And yet, it's something that I work on and have to actually do on a regular basis in my professional career. It's very common for me in the work setting these days to interview candidates over video or to be in video conferences, both with local peers or some of our corporate executives who are in other locations on a pretty regular basis. And so, for that reason, please use these opportunities to get practice and also understand that I'm choosing these things strategically, not just to make you uncomfortable, but because I think they're beneficial. So with that, let's get started on the week 2 content. The first TED Talk video in week 2 is from Jessica Garza. And Jessica tackles the topic of navigating communication or interactions with what I'll call incompatible personalities, or maybe just maybe it's your best friend, someone you normally get along great with, but maybe you have an interaction where you're just not seeing eye to eye and there's some friction or discomfort. And so Jessica shares tactics around mood regulation, is what she calls it, but basically how to navigate what I would call like these sticky situations. And with the ultimate goal of trying to move past it, right? If maybe there's some relationship damage or if there was some underlying goal to begin with, right? Maybe you're on a project team and you're having to solve a challenge or finish some project. Jessica calls these prickly emotions, and I wanted to share another resource that I found helpful. There's a book called Crucial Conversations that was required reading at a company I worked for previously. The company was publicly traded. We had hundreds of managers in 18 states. And once a year, there was a manager class in person where we would travel. And we had a 2-day class that was content built around this book called Crucial Conversations that you can find on Audible and Amazon and lots of other places. The premise with Crucial Conversations is that inevitably we all encounter situations with high emotion and also high importance outcomes, right? Maybe it's a job interview, maybe it's a negotiation, maybe it's a relationship conversation that's kind of make or break. And with some strategy and practice, we can equip ourselves to be much more successful in those situations than the average person. And I like to think about it as almost a superpower. If we can recognize crucial conversations and basically kind of, slow our breathing and try to push down what sometimes people call this tidal wave of emotion, we can actually push through to what our initial goal was to begin with, right? And get less carried away by those emotions. And the premise behind Crucial Conversations, the book, and then Jessica's video here, is that if you're successful in mood regulation, or if you're better than most, you will stand out among your peers, right? You will be more likely to be recognized as being a strong leader or manager versus, a leader who can't regulate their moods and is, unapproachable if they're having a bad day or if they don't get the outcome that they want. So it's easier said than done, but I think it's special to think about and practice. The second video this week is from Julia Dar, who I'll lead with the fact that she's a world debate champion, which that in itself is incredible. Julia, who basically has conversation for a career, right, at a high level, and on topics, right, that are sometimes controversial or just challenging, right? In debate, I don't know if you've followed debate, how it works sometimes, but you're often given a topic and a stance, and you have to argue for or against it, regardless of your personal views. And so that definitely takes some skill. And so Julia, who is, let's say, an expert on conversations, effective conversations, she shares with us some tactics and ideas around how to have constructive conversations, right? Whether you agree with someone or not. I think what's special about her thoughts and debate in general is there's a healthy way to communicate with people that we don't agree with, right? We don't have to just avoid people or stop conversations if we don't agree, right? But there are some great ways to continue the dialogue in a healthy and open manner. And on that topic, I wanted just to thank a handful of you who've been very honest in the first few video discussions about whether or not you related to a topic. It's completely acceptable, and I hope that you're honest in your responses on whether or not you thought the ideas shared had merit, whether or not you thought the speaker delivered their message well, right? In the first week's video where there was music played, several of you shared, this isn't the type of music I would normally listen to. I completely agree, and I think that's fair. What's been wonderful so far is many of the students who said, hey, it didn't really resonate with me, that wasn't all they said. They explained why. They, and I think continuing the dialogue, right, not just saying, I don't like it, and ending there, I think is what makes the difference in a constructive dialogue versus someone who doesn't choose to progress in sharing ideas and information. So please, as you're watching these videos, I'm not expecting you to gush if it's not authentic. What I do want to hear is whatever your authentic response is, and that way we're getting a variety of perspectives. As we move past the two videos that you'll be responding to, let me just remind you, you need an original post each week by Wednesday, and then 2 responses to classmates for each video by Sunday at midnight. So you'll have a total of 6 responses by the end of the week to get full credit. Everyone's done wonderful so far. That's going to be the consistent process throughout the term. Okay, in week 2, we have some very, what I would call, standard writing assignments. You're going to write an email, a business email, and there's a prompt here where it explains what the nature of the email is. You're responding to a customer complaint. And for some of you, this might be something you do all the time. For others of you, maybe you haven't had a professional role yet that required email. And so this might be new. So for each of these 3 assignments, there's a video to get you started that offers some guidance. And so you're not just starting from scratch. My hope for these, right, without a textbook, is that you're getting some kind of nuts and bolts and some, what I would say, basic tools for business writing. So you're going to write an email. You're going to write a memo. Memos are usually internal, right? So an email, it's going to be between a employee at an organization and a customer. And then this memo is an internal announcement, essentially, where you're going to be explaining a work from home policy For each of these scenarios, for these assignments, feel free to be as creative as you want on elaborating details. I've just set you up with a really, really basic concept on like what the nature of the communication is. And so feel free to make up all the details if you want on the company name and the specifics of the work from home policy and, you know, how it applies to different departments. You know, don't worry about that, right? You're basically role playing and demonstrating that you can do a reasonable job on some of these common business writing tools. Lastly, and this piece will probably stretch you most of these three, right? An email, a memo, and then a business proposal. The business proposal is probably something most of you have way less experience with and possibly no experience. So again, there's a helpful video to give you an idea. And for these three assignments, let me be the first to tell you, like, I want this class to stretch you, but I don't want it to overwhelm you. And so for these, you know, do the best you can. I'm not looking for a multi-page, super elaborate business proposal. I'm looking for you to demonstrate that you understand the basics, right? That is the extent of the assignments for this week. So you've got 2 videos to watch and then 3 written assignments you'll upload, 2 of which are pretty short and straightforward. I encourage you to use all the tools available to you. And as we look ahead to week 3, I just wanted to mention week 3 will be diving into nonverbal communication and also discussing emotional intelligence. Several of you shared in your introductions to me. Emotional intelligence is a topic you're interested in. I also think it's super powerful and it's maybe less quantitative, right? It's kind of more art than science. And so I think it's fun for that reason to talk about and think about, because it's not necessarily like a how-to manual, right? Like here's 10 steps to be awesome in emotional intelligence. You could read that, but it might not unlock the power for you. It's more like a human skill. A few other wrap-up comments. Reach out if you have any questions. I have randomly created groups of students for the later group projects, and I'll be sending those details along later this week. Just to let you know who your teammates are. Maybe you can start figuring out initial ways to collaborate. Please don't be shy to reach out if you have any questions or comments for me. The class goes by quickly, and I know you are all very busy and have families and jobs and other classes, and so I try to be as clear and available as possible. I appreciate each of you, and I hope you have a great week.